Hey everyone, welcome back to Project Honesty, a podcast designed for young adults, by a young adult, to gain brutally honest, friend-like advice, as well as provide a platform for young adults to form opinions, color outside of the lines, and take deep dives into current events. This is Project Honesty, navigating reality with real conversations and diverse opinions. Before I get into today's episode, I just want to give a little bit of a trigger warning. Today, we'll be listening to some disturbing audio clips of people who are currently in Gaza. That includes the voices of children who are struggling to survive in Gaza, as well as discuss death and genocide. You might have noticed that I cut the have fun part out of my intro, because today is not fun. I will be discussing a very serious subject matter: the conflict in Palestine. I highly recommend that before you listen to this episode, that you go listen to Project Palestine Part 1, which is where I talk about the events that led up to this conflict and important moments that are contributing factors into the severity of this conflict. And so I highly recommend it to get a better grasp on the situation if you don't have one already, just so that this episode can be further and more informative for you. I just want to say that this issue is still ongoing. It is changing every single day. There's information that will not be put in here simply because I cannot keep up with the amount of things that come in from Gaza every single day. But I refuse to wait till this conflict is history to talk about it. It is important to talk about it now to gain awareness for the severity of this issue. In today's episode, we will be discussing children struggling to survive in Gaza, the blockages of essential medical materials, and blockades that Israel has set up to prevent Palestine from gaining access to these medical materials. We'll also be discussing the media coverage in and around Gaza and how Western media has responded to this issue. We're also going to discuss the recent airstrike in Rafah and the hashtag All Eyes on Rafah movement. Again, a trigger warning. This is a heavy topic. This was heavy for me to write. This is heavy for me to record, and it's going to get even heavier because of the audio that we're listening to. The audio that we'll listen to later on in this episode is extremely disturbing, and I do advise that if you're very sensitive to that you don't listen, unfortunately. It's a lot for me to listen to, but it is important to listen to because hearing the voices of the people that are really struggling due to this conflict puts us in perspective and makes us recognize the reality of the situation. First, I want to talk about the recent situation in Rafah. On May 26th, Israeli Defense Forces sent an airstrike into Rafah. It didn't hit any Hamas buildings or empty land. Out of all things, it hit a refugee camp for displaced people, killing dozens of innocent, unarmed, and displaced men, women, and children. The death toll at the moment for this catastrophic event is 45. That consists of mostly women and children, unarmed women and children. Israel said that in this strike, they killed 2 senior Hamas leaders, and Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, said that this airstrike was a mistake and that they had no intention of killing civilians. Despite that, this action of committing an airstrike into Rafah, which they were well aware that Rafah was mainly for refugees, is extremely despicable and inhumane. Now, there's a comparison made by a creator on TikTok. Her name is Molly Goodman. She used the Boston Marathon bombing of 2013 as her comparison to what Israel is doing in Palestine. She put it like this: what if law enforcement in Boston decided to bomb all of Boston, including the city and the suburbs, just to find the terrorist? That is what Israel is doing in Palestine to try and find and eliminate Hamas group members, and killing thousands of innocent civilians along the way. And this is Israel's try at justifying the horrendous actions and international crimes that they have committed. Benjamin Netanyahu has tried to justify this action since the conflict started. The hashtag All Eyes on Rafah has gained millions of shares on Instagram. But that share simply cannot be the only action we take. Passive support is not enough. Education on what actually happened in Rafah is essential to grasping the severity of the issue. To simplify that, Israel bombed a refugee camp in Palestine. A refugee camp full of innocent people. I want you to take a second and think about that. As we know, numerous amounts of children have died in Gaza. As of 2 days ago, 3 days since uploading this, the estimated number of children who have been seriously injured or killed in Gaza since October 2023 is 26,000. 26,000 children in Gaza have been seriously injured or killed. That is 2% of Palestinian youth population under the age of 18. Right now, I'm going to play an audio clip that I found during my research. In this audio clip, it is a young Palestinian girl in Rafah begging for her leg after it was amputated due to an Israeli airstrike in March. That is just one of many young Palestinian people that have been seriously injured over the past several months. UNICEF has reported that in April, out of the 36 hospitals in Gaza, 30 of them have been bombed and left unoperational, leaving around 6 and some medical clinics semi-operational. Children, like the young girl in the video, cannot find proper medical attention, so most of them end up dead or permanently or seriously injured. That young girl probably will never have 2 legs ever again. Due to the actions taken by the Israeli government, she lost that ability to walk, to play, to be a kid. She lost that. And with Israel having blocked multiple access points for medical supplies and aid convoys, and they've been attacking ambulances going into Palestine, it has depleted Palestine's healthcare system. Palestinians in Gaza right now have greatest limited access to healthcare, and so most go untreated. Since there is a lack of medical care available in Palestine right now, thousands of children have been left stranded alone in Gaza due to their parents not being able to receive medical attention and being killed in airstrikes and bombings. Some children have been left behind in Gaza because their parents have had to leave to care for their other seriously injured children. We're going to listen to another clip. It is of a young boy all alone in Gaza, living by himself, because his mom had to go to Egypt with his sister to get the medical attention she needed after being injured in a bombing. This kid is young, mind you. He is probably under the age of 10, living all by himself in a war zone. Just keep that in mind as we listen to this next clip.
كانت معي وجت عيني على المستشفى وقعدت معها في الآخر طلعوها في الإسعاف وخلت أنا هنا حالي فبدي أطلع عن دمي على مصر عشان أختي متصابة. هلا أنت لحالك ما كانش إخوة هنا؟ لا ولا حدا قال لي أنا والله ما بقدر أعيش أنا قاعد من لحالي بس. قاعد وين؟ فين؟ قديش إلك مش شايف أمك؟ زمان.
This little boy is breaking down in front of media, and he's saying that the last time he saw his mom was a very, very long time ago, and that he's there all by himself, and he's lonely. But he knew that his mom needed to go to keep his sister alive. To recap, thousands among thousands of children in Gaza have died. Now, supporters of Israel have tried to use the 33 Israeli children killed on the October 7th, 2023 attack as justification for killing thousands of children. Now, I don't condone the killing of children. No child should die from warfare at all. The 33 Israeli children should not have been killed, and there is no excuse for their death. Those kids should still be alive. Bernie Sanders put up a great statement on social media to explain how this action is unjustifiable. There is no reason to kill children. They are innocent beings, and this is not their war. They should not have been a part of this or suffered from it as a result. it makes me sick to my stomach to know that there are children dying, and I feel powerless. I think Israel has to realize the vast amount of blood they have on their hands, children's blood, and to take responsibility for those deaths. How has the amount of death in Gaza affected women in the area? Now, many of these women have been left to care for their children and families alone because their partners are either dead or seriously injured or missing or just generally unable to take care of the family. A lot of women in Gaza have also been forced to abandon their children due to the lack of medical care, as we know. So a lot of women, while they're trying to care for their family, leave home and return back to their family dead. We're going to listen to 3 more clips, and I just want you to really listen to these clips. Now, I don't speak Arabic. I don't understand what they're saying, so I'm glad that there's subtitles. If you do, please, you know what they're saying. I might put these up on the Instagram. I don't know if I will be able to do that, but I will see. But for now, we're just going to listen. Because even just listening, if you can't understand what they're saying, you can hear the pain in these mothers' voices. So the first out of these 3 clips that we're going to listen to is a mother returns home to find her home destroyed and is searching through the rubble to find her dead son that has been killed in an Israeli shelling attack.
والممر اهدي لي شو صلي على النبي يا جماعه اهدوا صلي على ابوي كان
That was the first clip. Sorry, give me a second. That is extremely disturbing. Again, the next 2 of these clips are not going to be any easier to listen to. So I think it's just best to keep in mind empathy and compassion for these people. The next clip that we are going to listen to is a mother that left to go get flour, only to return to her home, which has collapsed, and she frantically searches through the rubble to find her husband and 3 daughters that have been buried under the rubble, left to die. And the last clip we are going to listen to is a little boy attempting to console his mother, who is in distress after his older brother was killed in an Israeli attack in Gaza. Now, you can't really hear the mom in this clip. It is more focused on the little boy trying to comfort his mom, and he is actually crying as he's trying to console his mom. But he's still trying his best. He is probably 4 or 5. Those 3 clips are extremely disturbing, but are very important to listen to. I want you to imagine yourself as a mother in Gaza. What would your reaction be if you came home to find your partner and children dead and your home collapsed? What would you do? There is no right answer to grief. These women and children are suffering and are in a constant state of fear because some of them may not wake up tomorrow due to the inhumane and despicable acts taken by the Israeli government. When we talk about media in Gaza and responses from Western media about this conflict, there's a lot of division. Starting in Gaza, all these audio clips were taken, all the audio clips in this episode were taken from journalists who are risking their lives to cover ground footage and stories in Gaza. Several of these journalists, I think 92 at the moment, have been killed by Israeli forces. That's just media in and around Gaza. Responses and reactions from Western media have been extremely divided on this topic. Many of the news outlets that I have seen who have covered this issue briefly or have gone into it seem to either be unbiased or to side with Israel. Now, that's just news outlets, things that you can get on cable TV. When talking about the response on TikTok, there is a lot of division and sometimes extremism. I'm not going to talk about that on here because I frankly don't want to, but I will talk about the division between the two sides. When it comes to the Israeli side of this argument, there is a lot of sympathetic Israeli creators on TikTok who have attended Palestinian protests in support of Palestine or have not condoned the action of Israeli Defense Forces. But there has been some creators that do condone the actions taken by the Israeli Defense Forces and the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And it seems that these type of creators have a lack of acknowledgement. They're saying that by supporting Palestine, somehow you are anti-Semitic. If you don't know what that means, you're against Jewish people. That is not the case. If you actually go and look at Bernie Sanders' statement, he explains how supporting Palestine is not anti-Semitic at all. And there was even one creator who I won't name on TikTok. He said that by supporting Palestine, you are slowly being indoctrinated into radical Islamic terrorism. That statement is almost laughable. Supporting a country that is completely falling apart due to the Israeli government is not terrorism. That's just called being human. I don't know how to properly respond to that. But when I saw that, I got really pissed off because that is not what we're doing. Maybe that's his opinion, but I don't agree with that whatsoever. When looking on the Palestinian side of this argument on TikTok, Palestinian people have supported and pushed for ceasefires and government involvement in action. A lot of them have also tried advocating for medical aid for Palestinians and the push for Palestinians to have the ability to become refugees in developed countries. Students have also protested across the globe, not just in the western part of the world, but across the globe, even in Europe and Southern America. A lot of students on university and high school campuses have been protesting in support of Palestine. And Macklemore has actually created a song called Heinz Hall, and it's raising awareness of the unethical actions that Palestinians are forced to deal with every single day. And all of the profits made off of that song go directly to pro-Palestine organizations to support Palestinians living in Gaza. And so that's how Western media has responded on both sides. Overall, there is definitely mixed opinions, sometimes a lack of education, but just a general unrest on both sides and a lack of acknowledgement for one another. And to me, instead of arguing, we should just look at the facts. Division is never the answer to any issue, no matter the severity. If you analyze the facts of anything, that will solve the problem faster than being divided and having two sides. We should stop debating on who is right or who is wrong and consider the actions taken by both parties in this conflict. The one thing I do want to acknowledge again on here is that innocent civilians shouldn't have to die. They shouldn't be forced to live in fear, and they sure as hell shouldn't have to be forced out of their own home to try to find safety. To conclude this episode, I just want to go over what you can do to support Palestinians in Gaza. The first point is to research. Supporting anything requires education. Now again, if you want to know how this conflict started and the root of this problem, you can go listen to part 1 of Project Palestine, where I go in depth into the timeline leading up to this conflict. You can listen and read stories of Palestinians in and outside of Gaza, and also read articles around what's happening, and that will also provide more information on what you can do. One thing I do want to say is, do not just like a post. Look into it. Be fully informed. Again, with the hashtag All Eyes on Rafah movement, you can't just repost that and not know what it means. You do have to look into it because you got to know what you're supporting. Another big one is donations. Now, I know that not everyone can donate, but it is definitely one of the biggest ways to help Palestinians seeking asylum and medical aid. Before I end, I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about a personal connection of mine. One of my friends, whose name is Judy, I've been friends with her for 3 years, is Palestinian. Currently, Judy is running a GoFundMe to support her family in Gaza. Her aunt Akram is battling breast cancer. During this, Akram has lost some of the most valuable things in her life: her husband and child. The money that goes toward this GoFundMe is not just for Akram and her treatment, but is also for her other child who is also battling serious illness and isn't able to access care in Gaza. If you aren't able to donate, a simple share is all it takes. I will be putting the GoFundMe link in Project Honesty's Instagram bio for anyone who is able to donate. And this really hits home for me, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about this issue in the first place is because I care a lot about Judy. Judy is like a sister to me, and I want her family to be able to live a stable and healthy life. Again, the GoFundMe link will be in Project Honesty's Instagram bio under Akram GoFundMe. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Project Honesty. You can find Project Honesty on Spotify at Project Honesty or on YouTube at Project_Honesty. And to keep up to date with new episodes, you can head over to Project Honesty's Instagram, which is at Project_Honesty24. We also have a TikTok, which is project.honesty. To help spread this podcast everywhere, tell a friend or share with a family member about Project Honesty, and you can direct them over to the Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, or YouTube to help them learn more. The more listeners, the bigger the family. Bye-bye.